Just how big an issue is water damage to buildings in Australia, and what are the possible health issues from mould biotoxin exposure, like chronic inflammatory response syndrome or CIRS? Join Amy Skilton in her comprehensive course Unravelling CIRS WDB, which will give you the appropriate skills to both screen and manage your patients on their return journey to wellness. For more information and to register, please go to bioceuticals.com.au and click on the Education tab. This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. Joining us on the line today is Dr Francesca Panzironi, who's the founder and CEO of Anangu, Ngangkari, Tjutaku Aboriginal Corporation. That's ANTAC. Did I say that right, Francesca?
Yeah, correct.
Dr Panzironi travelled for 4 years across South Australia from 2008 to 2012 to document the status of Aboriginal traditional medicine from a legal and policy perspective, as well as in clinical settings. The findings of her research are articulated in Hand in Hand, Report on Aboriginal Traditional Medicine. Since 2013, Dr Panzironi and the Ngangkari, the Aboriginal traditional healers, have been engaging with mainstream healthcare services to provide Aboriginal traditional healing treatments in clinical settings. The recognition of Aboriginal traditional medicine and traditional healers as legitimate traditional healthcare practitioners continue to be at the core of Dr Panzironi's work. And I warmly welcome you back to FX Medicine. Dr Panzironi, how are you?
Thank you, and very well, thanks. Thank you for having me here.
Now, we first met at the NHAA Centennial Conference in earlier 2019, where we had a short interview, and it really piqued our interest because this is an incredible topic, and you've done incredible work, and indeed the Ngangkari healers have done their incredible work in a clinical setting. But I want to go first back through the beginnings of your travels and indeed why you embarked on this journey.
Yeah, sure. I did embark on this journey because I was shocked by the fact that in the work of the World Health Organization, particularly in a worldwide review about traditional, complementary and alternative medicine around the world, there was no mention at all about Aboriginal traditional medicine in Australia, as opposed to, other indigenous modalities of healing in other countries. So I think it's pretty well known that the World Health Organization has a specific department working and liaising with national states with the main goal of integrating traditional and alternative modalities of healing within national healthcare systems. So this applies also to Australia within the Western Pacific region of the World Health Organization. But interestingly, there has never been a mention of Aboriginal traditional medicine in the international literature in general, and particularly within the World Health Organization. So this was what really sparked my curiosity, my surprise, and my intention to find out what had happened, how come that 60,000 years of history and clearly also Aboriginal healing practices have not been considered as part of whether within or outside the healthcare system in Australia.
So what were you doing before this to then look at the Ngangkari healers? What was happening in your life, in your professional life, to actually think about this?
Yeah, I had recently graduated. I had finished my PhD in law at the law school in Sydney, and And my PhD was on Indigenous people rights, self-determination,
Right.
and public policy. So actually, by the end of the PhD, I got really interested into Indigenous health policy in Australia. So, but there was no time and no space to include it into my PhD. So then I got a contract as a lecturer at the University of USW in Sydney. And just very intrigued by the possibilities of incorporating Indigenous people rights, self-determination through public policies.
Yeah.
And so that I wonder, I wonder if, there is a way of finding out and incorporating Indigenous people's rights to Indigenous medicine through public policies. So that's what was happening not before I embarked into my travel, specifically to South Australia.
And so, why South Australia? How did you become introduced to the Anangu people?
Yeah, well, I didn't choose. I didn't pick South Australia out of among the other states in Australia. What happened is that I was looking for some information, and the only person who replied to my emails was Toto Sokuri, who is a Naranga elder from Port Piers here in South Australia.
Right.
So he rang me back and he said, I don't know much about Ngangkari, but we do have Aboriginal traditional healers traveling from Central Australia and coming to Tjutaku. At that time, he was the CEO of the Tjutaku Aboriginal Community Control Service. So he said to me, "Why don't you come down when we are young?" I said, "Okay." So my next, teaching break, I was on my way to Tjutaku. And from there, I actually, I started to learn and to find out that, the reality, the community level was very much different from what I was reading, in the books. So, So I embarked into this process of interviewing anyone within the health system who had some kind of familiarity with the work of the Ngangkari in particular. So Ngangkari is, healer, traditional healer in Pitjantjatjara and Nyankundjara language. So traditional healers from the central desert area. Until a friend of mine who was working with another organization just invited me to go up to the communities and introduce me to the Ngangkari. So she knew what I was trying to do, and I said, well, my dream would be to meet at least one of them and just have a chat.
But then, of course, you've got the corridors that you would have had to have walked to get the traditional healers approved, accepted by the hospitals. Was that hard work? Was that, knocking your head against a brick wall for a long time?
I think that here in South Australia, I think kind of the groundwork was already done in a way, because when I started, researching on what was happening within the health department, I actually found out that, the Ngangkari were actually already visiting the hospitals and some organizations on an ad hoc basis. It actually, the Aboriginal branch, the Aboriginal unit within SA Health was already trying to formalizing a way to incorporate the traditional healers. So, there was already an inroad there. But I think that, because at least here in South Australia, because of the high level of movement of the healers and the families, so they were quite used to have to see them coming through Adelaide, and at the community level, there was a pretty good understanding of the work of the Ngangkari already in South Australia.
Right.
But other states, if you talk about Sydney, it's a completely different story. But here in South Australia, in a way, I was lucky because attempts were already being made to find a way to get the Ngangkari at least on an ongoing basis. It kind of worked to a certain extent, but the intent to establish a solid policy didn't go through because, I think they didn't have a counterpart to talk to. What I mean is that, as it often happens, policies are articulated and discussed within office buildings.
Yeah.
But the Ngangkari were not included in this discussion. So, I don't know, in a way it was good because there was already an openness and, it was already a process happening within SC Health, the Aboriginal Health Branch in particular, which was excellent. But the other side was not consulted, I think, in a proper way. So that when I met the Ngangkari, I could see that, on one side there was the health department open to the possibility to get the Ngangkari, within clinical settings.
Yeah.
On the other side, there was this group of Ngangkari who became, my friends and my family who were ready, and all they wanted to do is to travel and heal people and communities. So, and I, happened to be there in the moment in which there was, they kind of came all together. I didn't go there with a plan. I had no idea what to do. Really, I was still, pushed by my curiosity, and I really wanted to find out why, they were not included in any, policy frameworks, including the Closing the Gap national policy framework,
Right.
Which is even, more surprising from my point of view. So I wonder, why, even the Closing the Gap Indigenous health policy frameworks doesn't even consider.
This comes up time and time again about a lack of consultation. So what is the consultation process that you had to go through, and indeed what should we be doing to include Indigenous healing for Indigenous peoples?
I think that it has to be a real consultation process and not a tick box exercise as often happens. So, I have seen in communities in different programs, meetings held as a consultation process, and only, a couple of people out of hundreds of people in the community attending that meeting. So, can we call that a consultation meeting? So, what happened with me at the Ngangkari, it was different because, on that side, they really wanted to do something. So it was, when I would arrive there, they already knew what they wanted. So, and I think at least with the people I work with, it's always been dangerous to generalize, in many areas. But I found that the Anangu, they are very straightforward. They know what they want, they know what to do, So, there is not a lot of talk about, what they say, what is in their mind. And, you don't have to spend a lot of words around that. So, I think that, personality-wise, that we kind of was the right match because I'm not a big, very talkative, and I'm pretty straightforward and direct. So, if there is something to do, this is what I say that, in a very simple and clear way. So, my advice would be, to really get to know the traditional healers in other areas, but first of all, get to know what they want.
And it would obviously be, different for various areas, like, the Wiradjuri people around, from Griffith, Leeton, right through to Cowra, that sort of area.
We don't know. My dream, Andrew, was always when I started to do this consultation process or research, whatever you want to call it, Australian-wide. it would be fantastic to have the opportunity to actually travel and just meet the healers all across Australia and hear what they think and what they want. Perhaps in the future, I don't know if I would have this opportunity. But we don't know until we talk to the people in the communities, to the healers, because you can have, some healers who might prefer just to keep practicing their healing within the families, within the communities, without being engaged within the health service. It's a possibility. It really, the first step is really, talking, on at a very ground level with the healers and find out what they want.
So when we're talking about the contribution of Aboriginal healing practice within, a Western healthcare settings, if you like to term it that way, I guess the first and foremost point is respect given to traditional healing practices, but there's also an employment pathway, right?
Yeah, definitely. And indeed, our organization's main goal is to create an employment pathway within the health system, and so that they are recognized as legitimate healthcare practitioners. So basically, what I've done with together with Ngangkari, I tried always to look around and look for possibilities to create inroads within health care settings and to find ways to employ the Ngangkari, as whether on a casual basis, whether on an ad hoc basis, whether on an ongoing basis, so that they could actually be remunerated for their work. And at the same time, to keep maintaining and practicing their own healing practices. You have different situations, different settings. Yep. So I always, have a very flexible approach. So it's really to find a place in this modern society for the traditional knowledge system to thrive. When we talk about integrative models, what we are trying to do is not meant to be an integration whereby the Aboriginal traditional system of knowledge is collapsed within the biomedical model, but it's first and foremost the recognition that the two systems are founded and constructed on completely different epistemological foundations. So, I think some attempts to incorporate Ngangkari in the past have failed because what they were trying to do is to adapt the training modules, the certification, accreditation processes established within the biomedical model to, a cultural knowledge system.
Yeah.
So you can't do that.
I was going to ask about that, about the preferred healing practices that are used, what sort of therapies are used, particularly in a hospital setting. And I'm interested in how they've been accepted by orthodox medicine. I mean, it must have started off quite tenuously, right?
Yeah. Again, it varies depending on locations.
Sure.
The great contribution of healing practices, I think, it's on a physical level. And I'll give you an example: pain relief and pain management. Now, if anyone knew that, instead of taking, 10 Panadol a day because you suffer from a chronic pain condition, instead, with maybe 2 or 3 healing intervention by the Ngangkari, your pain can be managed without, an intake, such a, high intake of painkillers.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah, sure.
So I think the very first outcome that I have learned by just being with them and delivering the service to them is the significance of their capacity to identify where the pain is and to literally and practically take out the pain.
Yeah.
So the intervention, it's a hands-on intervention. So a lot of people ask me if it's like a Reiki or other modalities. It's not. It's hands-on. It's very specific, pretty quick. They know where the issue is. They work on that point or points, and they really, with the hands, take out the pain. From a spiritual, emotional, psychological point of view, I think the greatest contribution, among others, is the introduction and the consideration of the human spirit as part of our body and our health and well-being. Now, the interpretation of spirit and spiritual life changes from culture to culture.
Yeah.
Very briefly, within the Anangu, the Aboriginal traditional healing culture, they see the spirit as an organ, so as a very core organ of your body. So it's like the heart.
Yeah.
So they can't think about a human being without the spirit. They always tell me, Kunga, if the spirit is gone, you can die.
Yes.
So, yeah, so, you can see the results straight away when they can feel or see if the spirit is out of place, so should sit in the middle of the chest. If it's misaligned or out of the body, they can put it back and people, feel better physically, emotionally, psychologically.
That's really amazing. Like when you consider that Australian Aboriginals have been cut off from the rest of the world, if you like, for 60,000 odd years, and yet there's these similarities between the misplacement of our spirit, if you like, with, let's talk about TCM. Let's talk about Indian Ayurveda. That's really interesting that this is a commonality.
I personally think, Andrew, that, if we look back at maybe, thousands of years ago, there must have been a healing tradition all around the world, very hands-on ways and ways of treating each other. And some knowledge, I think, with time has been lost or has been misinterpreted with the surgence of institutionalized religion, if you want, and all that stuff, institutional scaffolding within which we live. Whether it's political, whether it's religious. So I think at the foundation there is a knowledge which is it belongs to the human history. And now I'm not surprised anymore to see commonalities between, say, some healing practices in India and the Aboriginal traditional healing practices. I think there is a common knowledge, and common knowledges and systems and practices.
Absolutely.
At some point, there were just practices all across the world in different communities.
So there's 2 points that I sort of am taking away from this, and one is that we have to be sensitive to various cultures. For instance, some react to pain more vocally than others, whereas others are very private about their pain. We're talking, let's say, Mediterranean versus Asian experiences of pain. And the other point that I'm taking away is that when we've got such an issue with, opioid abuse, pain experience of the population and the conundrums of treatment, we really need to look at various other options to look at pain relief. So this certainly seems to be a successful approach.
Yeah, exactly. And we have some people who have actually, with the intervention of the Ngangkari, actually they have reduced the intake of also antidepressants. So not only painkillers. So yeah, I think that it's in the best scenario would be that different modalities working hand in hand, working together.
Yeah.
And one should supplement the other when the other cannot have a good result.
That's something I wish orthodox medicine would listen to. When you don't have a good result with orthodox medicine, it would seem medically prudent that you would look elsewhere. But anyway, so I was going to ask though, Francesca, about were there any concerns with safety when you started the program?
Yes, discussions, were held in terms of safety issues, also, insurance issues and so forth. But, for example, within Esther Health and also with the contract agreement we have with the Northern Ireland Local Health Network here, the risk assessment has been done, and the issue of safety, has been, classified as a very low risk intervention because, there is no ingestion of substances, so the Ngangkari do not prescribe, don't give any substances.
Right. Okay.
So there is a use of some ointment, which is made with natural products, so just like a medicinal plant, some beeswax and olive oil.
Yep.
And also, there is no manipulation of bones, so there it's described within, the policy or guidelines as a light touch. So, I think we are lucky in a way that, there have been some senior administrators within, this health department, which, can see that, the Ngangkari intervention does not cause, risk of, it doesn't arise safety issues. Yeah.
Was this a choice of the Ngangkari, or was this a safety aspect to say, look, we can't have ingestion of indigenous herbs because we don't know their action with orthodox medicines?
Yeah, that could be an issue. In this case, the Ngangkari, they don't have like an medicinal plant that they would give to their patients. But in this case, but you can have other cases or in other areas where there might be some, the use of some herbal processes or.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Yeah. I think it's a tricky again, when you are dealing with these issues within a health, department. I'm sure they will pose some issues of safety.
What about when the indigenous people get out of hospital, they go back to their home? Do they embrace their normal indigenous medical system there in its totality?
It depends. Not in its totality. I think realistically, also within remote communities, there is an understanding that what they call it, new illnesses, or white fellow illnesses, cannot be dealt with by the traditional healers. So,
yeah.
And so, even in remote settings, there is, a primary healthcare clinic. Mm-hmm. And there are the Ngangkari or other healers, they're called other ways in different areas. So it's not, we just go with our traditional healing. It's always, both of them, depending on what the issues are.
Yeah.
Because realistically, if someone has, kidney failure, diabetes, cancer, serious heart conditions, the healer can help with, shooting the pain and, some side effects of some medications, but, you need really to be treated by the biomedical system.
Yeah.
Because they don't, they are, they're not we want to call it traditional illnesses,
Yeah.
Yeah, even though the Ngangkari can help, from a spiritual point of view, we have had a lot of people with cancer, and the Ngangkari always said, I'm not going to treat the cancer, just per se, but I can help you to feel better.
Yeah.
And some people come here, during and after the chemotherapy treatment they go through, and they do feel better. So they help, with the flow, the better blood circulation, pain, like nausea, vomiting, headaches, migraine. People can't sleep, sometimes, and they can help a lot with that.
Right.
And,
well, even from a biochemical process, if you ease how somebody's anxiety is about their condition, particularly, let's say, cancer, then you're taking away a catecholamine or reducing a catecholamine, which will progress with metastases, because catecholamines are one of the routes by which metastases anchor into bones. So, there's this biochemical reason, if you like, for that that method. So I see a win-win both ways there.
Exactly.
I'm wondering how the Caucasian, how the white man doctors though are coming on board with this. Are they embracing it? Are they seeing this as a real benefit to them?
It varies again a lot. It depends on the level of familiarity they have with the healer.
Yeah.
Because you can have a doctor. Actually, recently I've had a few doctors coming to the clinic or referring some of the patients, and they are open to different modalities. I mean, recently I had a psychiatrist and another doctor. I didn't know them. And they actually, just openly admitted that they can see the limitations of the new biomedical model.
Yeah.
So, what we're doing is not working.
That's right.
And we need something else to help us. So I truly believe there are a lot of, good-hearted doctors, so, very open, to understand better how we function as human beings and what can be done differently or better for our health and well-being. We're open, so and they refer actually the patients here to the clinic. So on the other side, you have an aspect, different, not a lot, I have to say, because I don't have direct contact with doctors a lot, who have never met any healer. They don't have any idea what to do, how to do it. I remember when I was traveling across South Australia interviewing some doctors, and those who had spent most of the time in metropolitan settings, they didn't have clue. So I don't know what you're talking about.
So we need your open-minded doctors to be teaching their peers.
Yes. There are. I've met a lot, I have to say. And I can mention Dr. I don't think he minds, Dr. Clayton Spencer. He's the executive director of the Western New South Wales Local Health Network. And that's like an open, very open-minded doctor who actually, opened the hospitals doors for us, for the Ngangkari.
Wow.
In most of the hospitals in New South Wales, Western New South Wales. So, he, I'm not sure if, there is the SBS has covered a story on SBS, and actually, he says, he says, I'm not sure whether it's a placebo effect or whatever it is, if 8 out of 10 patients come out from the consultation room with the healer and who say that they have no pain, for me it's just success.
That's right. And you know what? From a white man perspective, from even a skeptic's perspective, so the orthodox medical model would be entrenched in this. And my approach would be, if you're going to get an incredible cost saving from employing the Ngangkari healers to come in and help these patients, and you're going to have a massive cost saving on pain medication and a health outcome improvement with reduction of opioids, do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. Yeah. I think there's still a lot of steps to be taken, in that direction. But we have started, and I really hope that, we get to collaborate closer with the doctors, because, it's a good opportunity to get the best out of the two worlds and make people feel better.
That's right. What about data collection, Francesca? Is there data being collected that shows these improvements in various health outcomes?
Yeah, we are collecting the interventions that we make since the very beginning. I want to develop a research branch here within ANTAC, but to tell you the truth, I didn't have time to do that. So
Gotcha.
I'm starting now, and I think that my next obligation will be on that, providing an evidence-based document which shows what kind of interventions the Ngangkari have been doing, what kind of healing methods, and what the results are. So, just stay tuned.
Yeah. And what are your hopes or the hopes of the healers to roll out these programs to other areas to help other peoples?
Yeah, I hope that, the healers will have the opportunity to, share their experience now with ANTAC in working clinical settings with other healers across Australia. And actually it's already happening because we have been called in Western Australia for some consultations with traditional healers in the different regions. Because that's what's happening actually now, which is really positive, is that health departments in other states, like in New South Wales, Western Australia and Queensland, are including traditional medicine within their policy frameworks. Yeah.
Yay!
Yay! So I'm very happy about it. And we have already made a trip to Perth, and we have engaged with some health professionals, Western Australia Health, and we are going again because they want to roll out a similar program in Perth, Western Australia.
Yep.
So,
and is this in an urban hospital setting or in a rural hospital setting?
I'm not sure that in both areas. So that's why we are going, and we are very happy to give any help is needed. Both, to the health professionals, the bureaucracy and to the communities and the healers, because, we have faced and overcome a lot of the hurdles that I'm sure they are dealing with now in different areas. So, I think that there is a huge potential for the inclusion of Aboriginal traditional healers across Australia in the near future. I think it's already happening.
That's incredible work. I've got to say, you and the healers have done an incredible job of not just realising that there was a deficit, but changing it. Like, it's awesome work. It's incredible.
Thank you, Andrew. It makes me very happy,
Well, so well done to you. And I might say to our healthcare practitioners who are listening, you can access Francesca's book, Hand in Hand, Report on Aboriginal Traditional Medicine, and it's available from antac.org.au. Dr Francesca Panzironi, thank you so much for your work, and thank you to the Ngangkari from ANTAC for their work as well.
Thanks to you and for giving me and the healers this opportunity. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening to our story.
This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. If you're a regular visitor to the FX Medicine website, You would have seen many of our great infographics. These are all now available for use in your clinic. You can download them for free, and the high-resolution versions are available for purchase as A3 or A2 posters or as a digital file. Simply click on the button beneath your favourite infographics at fxmedicine.com.au.